Look at this cute pensioner. This is Queen Elizabeth II. She died at the age of 96. But why has her appearance not changed much over the past 20 to 30 years? The internet is full of funny photos and memes on this topic, but it's not funny at all. Let's figure it out. In the center of London there is a monument to the soldiers and officers who died in the Crimean War. Especially to the sons of Serov and Perov, who gave their lives back in 1854 during a heroic and senseless attack of light cavalry on the redoubts occupied by the Russians near Balaclava. Why noble English youths clung to the walls of Sevastopol is a separate topic. Now the fact itself is important. If the ruling class sent soldiers of their country to fight in foreign, distant countries, then in the forefront of the most dangerous attacks were its upper classes, their own children. This was called aristocracy. One of the qualities of people from this class was that for them there was always something more important than the fear of death. In the 19th century, a person could not be considered a baron, count, duke or lord if he was afraid of some kind of death. If he did not seek death in battle, did not rush to meet it, like beautiful news. But now the elites are completely different and live suspiciously long. So what is the secret of such longevity and youth? This is exactly what today's video is about. Remember an old US president like Jimmy Carter? So, he's alive, he'll be 100 years old soon, and a bunch of other former presidents, senators, just rich people are all alive. And here we are surprised that two grandfathers of deep pensioners fought for the presidency. In the American elite over 70, this is a normal active age. There are still 20 years before death. But what is the secret of these centenarians? What's wrong with them? By the way, if you are a fan of alternative history, the practice of conspiracy that is happening in the world today, then be sure to subscribe to our channel, because there is always fresh information and interesting facts. Leave a comment below the video. Let's take it in order, so that the shocking facts from the end of the video are not perceived as nonsense, but have strong confirmation. Recently, the young Baron Rothschild died in Switzerland. That's what they write, young. He was only 57. Unheard. The official cause of death is a heart attack. But no one believes in this. A commoner can die of a heart attack at 57, and the Rothschild at 57 do not die of a heart attack. They recall that the Baron had conflicts in business. John D. Rockefeller died at the venerable age of 97 and David Rockefeller at 102. Heart attack? It's not even funny. Only in 2020 did death gather a particularly large harvest. According to the laws of statistics, presidents, oligarchs and bankers and other masters of the planet should have died, especially since there are many elderly and very old people among them. And how many died then, when the fashionable disease was raging with might and main? It brought death to many. Famous people, influential people, and rich people have left, but not the most influential and not the richest. It seems that there is a bold line separating people, even successful ones, from non-humans. And this trait has something to do with longevity. Today, almost everything in the human body can be replaced, except for the brain, which wears out by about 95 years of age. It is pointless to transplant someone else's brain, because it will no longer be you. One of the solutions seems to have been found in digitalization. Behind the talk for the poor about connecting socially significant facilities such as schools, paramedic stations and government agencies to the internet, billions of dollars are now being invested in the development of a brain-computer interface, a system for connecting the brain and the computer. In Russia, for example, this project is called Neuronet and is supervised by its National Technology Initiative, the roadmap of which openly indicates the tasks of life extension and personalized medicine. Maybe this is the first step in quotation marks to eternal digital brains for those chosen ones who have earned eternal immortality with their wealth by birthright. A very vivid illustration of such a strange future is the series Altered Carbon, in which moths, practically celestials, can buy any shell for themselves, clone their own, create dozens of their own clones, or even additionally copy their consciousness to a backup stack. This is a world in which it is possible to unload human consciousness and personality with the help of a stack from one body or shell to another. And even though this is fantastic, but still today we are talking about such a qualitatively different level of medicine, at which accidental sudden death is practically excluded. At least among the richest rulers of the planet. But this level of medicine will be available to very few. And, of course, not only because of the high cost, but also because some methods are deliberately used only in a narrow circle. Of course, some of the technologies for the elite are breaking into the public field. For example, Ambrosia Medical, a medical startup that plans to fight aging by transfusing young people's blood plasma to old patients. It is based on experiments on parabiosis, that is, the fusion of two mice and the transfusion of blood from young individuals to older mice. In both cases, the old mice began to feel better. Experiments have also been conducted on humans. Sure, it's more like some kind of bad joke in the style of Count Dracula, but things like this go deep into history. In the 30s, a certain doctor named Paul Nihans appeared in Switzerland. He bought a mansion in the Swiss Alps, gave it the name Sun Rock, and after a while named among his patients the richest and most powerful people in the world. Among whom were Popes Pius XII, Winston Churchill, Charles de Gaulle, Konrad Adenauer, Somerset Maugham, Bernard Baruch, and many others. At the same time, Paul Nihans was not actually a certified doctor. Its origin is also unclear. He himself assured that his mother was the illegitimate daughter of the Prussian King Frederick III. So what was the method of its treatment, which led to the fact that the elderly rejuvenated both externally and internally? But something else is important here. All these people led an active intellectual and physical life until their death and did not know the infirmities of old age, such as, for example, sexual impotence. So, the method was essentially simple. Vital organs were removed from sheep or cows and injected into the patient's body in the form of medicines. Nihans took $1,500 for each rejuvenating injection, and by the end of his life he became a fabulously rich man. However, the treatment of old millionaires with cow and sheep embryos turned out to be only a prelude. Soon, doctors mastered an incomparably more effective medicine, which was made from embryos. Let's say, not animals. 1/5,000th of a gram costs about $200,000. The topic of this drug is very difficult and can be discussed in a separate issue. In the meantime, let's see how the scientific basis is brought under the obvious difference in longevity, where without it. Scientists publish studies in which the smart and rich live longer than the poor and stupid. Intelligence and the interesting high-paying job associated with it, of course, helps a person lead a healthy lifestyle. But for any normal person, it is obvious that here scientists have clearly swapped cause and effect. As, for example, sociologist Linda Gottfredson from the University of Delaware and psychologist Ian Deary from the University of Edinburgh did. Yes, we have published several papers proving that the rich live longer because they are much smarter. That is, they quite consciously justified social inequality by the superiority of the ruling class over the rest. But the poor don't go to a prestigious college not because of their natural stupidity, but because they don't have the money to study. That's all. Suffice it to recall how the children of workers and collective farmers, having received a decent education and becoming adult specialists, phenomenally advanced science in the Soviet Union. Or is it just there? Korolev is the son of teachers, the author of the Soviet space program, and the author of the American space program is Wernher von Braun, the designer of the Third Reich, royal blood in several generations, a baron. His father was the minister chairman of the Reichsbank, deputy Reich chancellor. Or there is an even more complex and unrealistically fantastic version that could shed light on why some members of the elite live so long, and their cognitive and physiological abilities are preserved to a ripe old age. To do this, let's move to the Vatican. Perhaps the smallest and at the same time the most closed city-state on our planet. The country, which has an area of only 0.44 square kilometers, is located in the western region of Rome on the right bank of the Tiber. The population is only about 2,000 people. In general, the Vatican became an independent state only on June 7, 1929, in accordance with the Lateran agreements concluded by Pope Pius XI with the Italian government, which was then headed, by the way, by Benito Mussolini. The state has its own newspaper, radio and television, its own flag, its own army of Swiss guards, and, remarkably, even its own prison in the absence of its own police. What is this strange, small, but very powerful state, in the basements of which all the world's secrets are kept? For all its seeming toys, this dwarf state has a colossal power based on huge resources, human, financial and occult. The Vatican wields more power than any government or any multinational corporation. It's just that for every Catholic there is only one pastor, the Pope of Rome, whose word is much more important than any decree of any president, because the Pope is the vicar of the alleged Lord on earth. In fact, the Holy See was able to control almost the entire Anglo-Saxon world and the traditional colonies in which the faith enjoyed fire and sword. True, in recent years, the influence of the Holy See has weakened significantly not only in the New World, where, in fact, the positions of Protestants have always been stronger, but also in Europe and other regions of the world. To understand how long the power of the Vatican lasts, let's go back to the time of the World War II. 6 months after Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany, on July 20, 1933, the German Reich Chancellor signed a concordat with the Vatican. The Vatican pursued the goal of official recognition by the German authorities of the Code of Canon Law on the territory of Germany. But Hitler was thinking about something else. The signing of a concordat with the Vatican for the new Germany means the recognition of the National Socialist state by the Catholic Church. The treaty clearly shows the world that National Socialism's hostility to religion is a lie. But one of the most famous mysteries of the Vatican is perhaps the Vatican Library. According to official data, it stores almost 2 million printed publications, both old and modern, 150,000 manuscripts and archival volumes, 8,300 incunabula, of which 65 are parchments. More than 100,000 engravings, about 200,000 maps and documents, as well as many works of art that cannot be routinely recorded, including 300,000 medals, coins and much more. According to unofficial data, in the underground vaults of the Vatican, which occupy a huge territory, there are many secret rooms known only to the initiated. The Pope, spending many years in the Vatican, did not even suspect their existence. It is in these rooms that there are priceless manuscripts that shed light on various mysteries of the universe, which can provide answers to any questions and so on. They contain manuscripts from almost all the ancient libraries of the world. There is an interesting version. Again, according to unofficial sources, the Vatican was created by the priests of the Temple of Oman, so its true residence is not in Italy, but in the Egyptian Theban Temple of Seti, which represents the dark personality of Set or Oman. The Italian Vatican today is more of a stronghold of the dark priesthood. It is from here that they throw us just crumbs, so that modern civilization develops in the way and at the pace that the true dark creators of the Vatican preach. According to public sources and encyclopedias, the Vatican Library was founded on June 15, 1475, after the publication of the corresponding bulls by Pope Sixtus IV. However, this did not accurately reflect reality. By this time, the papal library already had a long and rich history. The Vatican was a collection of ancient manuscripts that were the predecessors of Sixtus. They follow the traditions that appeared in the 4th century under Pope Damasus I and continued by Pope Boniface VIII, who created the first complete reference book at that time, as well as, under the current founder of the library, Pope Nicholas V, who declared it public and left behind more than 1,000 different manuscripts. According to numerous sources, the Vatican Library also contains unknown works by Leonardo da Vinci, Plato, manuscripts of the Atlanteans and others. The most interesting thing is, who really runs the Vatican? Who are the puppeteers behind this infernal machine? And the answer to this question can be found in an interview with Karen Hughes, who studied law at Yale University and economics in Amsterdam. Between 1980 and 1985, she worked for the U.S. Export-Import Bank. In addition, from 1986 to 2007, she worked in the legal department of the World Bank. An impressive resume and equally impressive statements from this CEO, who has worked at the World Bank for more than 20 years. In her interview, Hughes says that she was fired because of her attempts to expose what she says is the massive corruption that has been established in the highest circles of the bank and the global economy. She claims that everything is ruled by a strange entity they call Black Daddy. And the main thing is that this entity is not a person. She claims that there is another species on this planet that is not an ordinary human. This species allegedly dominated the Earth until the Ice Age. These entities are not aliens. This is a different kind of person, with high technological development and with a high IQ, but without any creative or emotional abilities. According to her, these creatures have long been in power and rule the world. Recall that some Egyptian pharaohs covered their elongated heads, as well as representatives of the mysterious Peruvian peoples. Referring to a Swiss study published in the journal PLOS One in 2011 on the global network of corporate controls, Hughes noted that a small group of organizations, mainly financial institutions and central banks, have a huge impact on the international economy. What is really happening is that this group of beings dominates the resources of the world. Adding that the corrupt officials of the authorities also manage to dominate the media, they are allowed to do so. Even if we consider this statement as a hypothesis or a so-called conspiracy theory, there is still a question. After all, now the Vatican is a state whose official degree of influence is almost equal to that of the United States, and unofficially the Holy See is a key player in world geopolitics, which is confirmed by the documents published in WikiLeaks by the correspondence of representatives of the U.S. Diplomatic Corps. The Vatican maintains diplomatic relations with 179 countries of the world, second only to the United States. The Holy See has observer status at the UN and maintains diplomatic relations with the European Union and the Sovereign Order of Malta. During the years of Benedict XVI's pontificate, the ambassadors of Australia, Cameroon, East Timor and Benin acquired their residences in the world. In the Apostolic Capital, even the permanent mission of the Palestine Liberation Organization has a special status. According to one theory, the Vatican is ruled by Jesuits who crave world domination. Who would have thought, but they are even credited with controlling corporations such as Disney and McDonald's. And, apparently, for good reason, because the Jesuit order promotes its interests through education, the media, science and religion. It seems that the Catholic Church is also actively preparing to disclose information about contacts with a highly advanced supposedly alien civilization. Pope Francis also claims that he will not refuse to baptize an alien if he wants to convert to the Catholic faith. The question is whether it will be an alien or someone else who has been well known to us for a very long time. Write about it in the comments, friends. Also like this video if you like the information about it. Don't forget to share it with your like-minded people and of course subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet.